Welcome to episode 90 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today I'm interviewing a man from St. Paul who has some incredible stories of faith to share about being in the right place at the right time. Hugh Plappert lived in the Minneapolis area most of his life. He came to faith at a rather young age, and God has used him to impact the lives of others throughout his career and into a new venture after he retired. Originally, even though Hugh had an interest in technology, he wanted to go into ministry, so he enrolled in the Apostolic Bible Institute. But when he arrived, he discovered the college was having big problems with their microcomputer. He learned about that system in high school, so Hugh resolved the problem quickly for the college. In return, he was awarded a full scholarship. After graduating, he continued to work in technology, but also helping the Bible Institute with their tech needs for 41 years on a volunteer basis. Since graduating, Hugh has been bivocational in that he worked from some large corporations by helping to maintain their databases, and he also did corporate consulting for 30 different Fortune 500 firms. Rather than standing before a church full of people, Hugh's pulpit was his keyboard, and he has impacted far more people that way than he could have by confining his skills to a single church. After retiring from his business career, Hugh went to work for his son's company, Phone Live, in developing technology to help people listen to church services on their cell phones, as well as translating messages into their native languages. More than 11,000 churches use the software today. To tell us his story about how technology helped him to strengthen his own faith and how he was able to impact the lives of others at the same time, please welcome Hugh Plappert to the show. Thanks for your time today, Hugh. I really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, like what you were doing for a career before you turned 50.
I spent my time bivocational between doing church technology and secular work. So it was kind of an interesting weave. I went to Bible college, and when I arrived, they were having problems with their new TRCD microcomputer. And I had learned about the TRCD in high school, so I sat down and I fixed it. And the next day, they turned around and gave me a working scholarship.
That's nice.
Yeah. And I've been with the Bible college for 41 years.
Which Bible college?
Apostolic Bible Institute in St. Paul, Minnesota. But I was never on their payroll. And so I did get a working scholarship. So while I was a student, my room and board, my tuition, all that was paid. But I had to go out and work part-time to have some cash for spending money. And so I've had a corporate consulting career, consulted with about 30 different Fortune 500, Inc. 500 type businesses, and got open some unique opportunities there.
What kind of consulting did you provide? All technology related?
Database, data analysis, helping databases.
That's tough to do because if the database isn't set up and correctly the first place, it causes all kinds of trouble down the road, doesn't it?
Right. So my particular skill set was to go into broken databases and fixing them up.
How long did you do that?
41 years.
What changed after you turned 50?
Well, one of the things is the challenge is keeping up with the technology. So that set me back, right? And then the culture. Not that I'm against the culture, it's just, different.
You were using technology to help churches with their worship and their services, is that correct?
Oh, I did a lot of back office stuff. So at the Bible college, in recruitment and accounting and stuff like that. I worked at the district level, again, in accounting and ministerial membership. And I've done some national work in conference planning. So I've not done the technology involved in worship media that much.
But you're helping your son with a business that is helping churches. Is that right?
That is correct. That's more his area of expertise.
What do you do for him?
So I actually operate the day-to-day business for phonelive.io. God has blessed him. So I raised my kids, God first, raised them in the church, serve others. And so I've got 5 children, and David's the oldest. And he just has that heart to serve. And so in seeing a need in helping in the ministry to serve and meet that need, he has actually sparked a number of businesses that God has blessed. And so he's never been wanted to push himself out there or try to build a business, et cetera. So PhoneLive.io was an accident. It wasn't something that we were created to be a business, but churches saw that we were resolving an issue and went viral and turned into a business.
What kind of services is it providing?
So Phone Live got started in the pandemic. There were a lot of people that couldn't watch their church services online for various reasons. So Phone Live takes the audio signal from your church's live video and connects it to the telephone network with a toll-free number. So people can listen to the church service over the telephone.
Oh, that's neat. They don't even have to log into a Zoom account or anything like that.
Right. And it's audio only.
Mhm.
And we created it for shut-ins in people that were in a rural area that didn't have internet connection for David's own church. And it was gone viral. Over 1,100 churches have used it. And then what we found out is they were using it for inner city poverty, where people couldn't afford the internet, Indian reservations where the internet's poor. They were using it for people with dementia, because our system, you can put a list of phone numbers in it. And when your church video goes live, we call those folks. So they answer the phone. There's no menu. There's no access code. There's no muting. So people with the dementia can even use it. Parolees that are out of prison are not allowed on the internet for a given period of time, depending on their crime. So they use it. And then we have Boston University and a few churches using it to serve the blind.
My goodness, a lot of people are benefiting from this.
Right. And we never coded it. We never created it for those other use cases. In fact, there's even churches that use it for translation. So they replace their translation audio packs with our phone system. It's less, there's no maintenance, and it's scalable, and it's a live audio signal. So all those use cases are things that we never wrote code for. That's just how God has used it and blessed it.
That is so neat. What is an audio pack? Is that the device that people pick up at the counter that allows them to listen to this church service with a little higher volume?
Right. So the challenge with that is it has maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
right? You got to fix them, repair them, or replace them. And then you may only have 25 packs, and you have a service for 30 people, right? And so in our system, there's no packs to repair, and as many people come with their cell phone, you can receive the translation.
Okay. And so how are they listening to it? Just on their earbuds or plug in headphones
Yeah,
in their cell phone?
Their earbuds, it's just a phone call. There's no app to install.
I just wonder how people react if they don't have the earbuds and if they're listening to the church service while the service is going on.
Right. Some of the churches actually get cheap earbuds like you get on the airline.
Right.
And they have those for backup to give away.
Okay. Now, on translation service, is that done through artificial intelligence, or do you have somebody actually translating the service and then replacing the audio?
We're just replacing the audio pack.
Okay.
So they're still using their interpreter.
Okay. I get it. Wonderful. So how has that changed your life?
I do it full time now.
Okay.
So I'm kind of, I call it semi-retired, even though I'm still working 40, 50 hours a week, but I'm working at home. I'm my own boss.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my son's my boss. But yeah, it's different.
What's it like to work for your son?
It's interesting. I mean, we got to upgrade our communication skill set and, kind of clarify and understand, what the other person's saying. So he doesn't work in the day-to-day business. He's the Thomas Edison in the laboratory. So since Phone Live, he's created a new product called live notifications. So when your video goes live, you can send out texts or emails to let people know that church service is starting, and then has a link in it for them to watch the video. He's created a new product called RIMG, R-I-M-G, and it's a receipt management system. So your youth leader, whatever department of the church, you've got a receipt you need to hand in. You just text it into the church, and that system has artificial intelligence then that parts the receipt and enters it for the accounting system, categories of stuff. If the information is missing, it takes back the person and asks them questions so they can clarify where to put the receipt in accounting. Saves the church administration tons of time and the quality of data a lot higher. And then he's created a new event management system to replace Bright for a lot of church events. It's costless to operate, and does more than Eventbrite. And that one's taken off. Before it was even available, there were 7 church districts that heard about it and were calling and asking for a copy.
Well, this
So
sounds like a great opportunity for you, somebody who is technologically oriented in the first place and spent an entire career in technology, now to utilize your skills to help churches expand their
right.
ability to get the message out.
hmm Right. So Phone Live, we connect about 20,000 disadvantaged people to their live church services every Sunday. So we joke that we built a mega church.
Exactly. That's right. And it's all online. Are the churches all in the United States or are they scattered around the world?
Majority of them in North America. We're working to go international.
Hmm.
We've had 1 international client so far. So, but North America, because a lot of the technology with Phone Live is telephone based. The telephone systems work different in other countries.
Do you have to learn any new technology in order to do this job?
I didn't, that's where my son comes in. He's doing all the technology components of it, and he's doing the technology components of it. So I'm just doing the business part.
The business part. So you're actually working with other churches to try and solicit their business?
Yeah, we're working on a reseller network. 99% of our business comes from word of mouth.
Okay.
We had a minister walking in the park and sat down on a bench and introduced himself to another guy who happened to be a minister. And he had a similar need and he referred it to us.
That's neat that you're able to
Yeah.
connect everybody doing that. Have you heard from people who've used the product, how beneficial it is?
We've got testimonial videos in the Phone Live YouTube page. And, one church, they got a letter from a lady whose mother was impacted by being able to use the phone and explaining how her mother was crying to be able to reconnect to the church that she hadn't heard in weeks.
That's so cool that they're able to do
Yeah.
that and then use it on the phone so they can be anywhere and listen to the church service as it's going on.
Yeah, there's no training.
Hmm.
You just pick up the phone and you're in church.
That is very cool. I mean, a lot of older people are stymied by technology. It's growing so difficult. It's designed to make our lives easier, but it's harder and harder to use. So the
Yep.
ability to just pick up the phone and listen to a church service has to be a big relief to a lot of folks, I would think.
Right. So that's one of the attributes of all the technologies that my son has created
Hmm.
is he eliminates all the fancy stuff. Like the RIMG, RIMG, the receipt program. You just take a picture with your cell phone and text it in and you're done. There's no login to set up. There's no UX to learn. There's no menu to worry about. You just take a picture, text it in.
That's
And
neat.
so one of the attributes of these systems my son has built is our support calls are, I forgot how to get into the system because it's automatic and it's been working forever. So I haven't been into it. So I forgot how to get into it, or how do I update my credit card on the account?
Hmm.
Systems are so simple that there's not a lot of support. Benefits the customer, but also benefits us.
That's right. So
Yeah.
when you're not working, what are you doing that's providing meaning for your life?
We got 6 grandkids, and of
6
course,
of
5 children, and they're all over the United States. So for us to visit our children, it's a 2,000-mile round trip.
How often do you get to see them?
A couple times a year. We don't get to see them all the time, but usually a couple times a year.
Do you have any special hobbies that you're pursuing?
I'm not really into this business and, getting to grow. It takes a lot of work. And my wife is a full-time student.
Hmm.
So my wife went back to college to become a teacher, and she's a full-time employee as a paraprofessional substitute teacher at the Woodbury Leadership Academy. So
Okay.
she's a full-time employee and she's a full-time student, and she's doing 5 years of study in 3.
Oh my. So she's busy.
Right. And so I'm busy with the business, and it looks like I'll be traveling to a lot of conferences in the near future. She said, well, you're going to be traveling a lot. I'm going to go back and get a master's degree.
Hmm. So with technology, you paid your way through, or you got the grants to get your bachelor's degree in theology. Did you
Yeah.
work as a minister after that?
Just back office.
Okay.
The president of the Bible college, after I graduated, he asked me to come back and stay with him. And he told me that my pulpit would be a computer keyboard.
Were you all right with that?
That's where God had me at the time. And
Okay.
yeah, and since then, and seeing the miracles that God has done from that, it's huge.
What kind of miracles have you seen taking place as a result of people being able to utilize the technology that you're maintaining behind the scenes?
Part of it was people being able to use the technology, but part of it was how God was working through my personal life at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was with the college as a volunteer, living on campus for 9 years. About 6 years into that, I'm single. The president came to me and says, it's probably time you step up and go get a full-time job. The college enrollment was down. I was still working for the college as a volunteer. And so I sent out 100 resumes. And this back in the day, paper resumes in the mail, right? So I get 99 rejection letters and I had them in a shoebox, had them all alphabetized. One was outstanding. And I was like, it didn't work, right? And finally, the 100th letter came in. It was from Northwest Airlines wanting to interview me. And so I went to the interview and the HR representative was upset with me. She kept saying, you got any more questions? I said, no. Any more questions about the benefits? I said, no. Insurance, vacation, any more questions? No. Says, you're the first person we've ever interviewed that never asked about the free flying privileges.
Wow.
Oh, really? I would go for a job.
Mm-hmm.
I got hired. Later on, I found out that they actually had hired somebody else who had lied on their resume.
Ouch.
And so I was actually the second choice. Right after I get hired, Alcheki buys out the airline. And so there was a lot of personnel turnover. It ended up because of my position I was in seniority, that out of 44,000 employees, over 42,000 of them had less privileges than me. So I walked up to an airplane. I got on first class. So I got that privilege, which helped the ministry and the Bible college because I was able to run errands for them, go visit a new faculty member, go visit a prospect, connect with people. And then I was also the reservations manager, who happens to be a PK. Whenever I told him about a minister having a problem with their flights, he took care of it, saved missionaries and ministers thousands of excess of dollars because he was able to rearrange things and get the ticket price down for them. In my third year at Northwest Airlines, they reorged the company, and myself and another gentleman named Doug Smart lost our jobs. We were still on payroll, but we had no job.
How do you work that out?
So our job was to come to work and see where we could contribute. So Northwest Airlines had like 12 buildings in town, and I had a desk at every building. And I could show up at any building, go home when I was done with my work, whatever. And God just allowed me there to get involved in so many areas of technology and different departments and different business processes in the company, right? That set me up for a consultant career because I knew a lot more about the big picture. I understood the budget system, understood marketing, understood telecommunications, etc. And while I was doing that, HR would call me in for the annual review and to say, we've got all these letters of things that you touched and impacted people so appreciative of what you've done. I was getting 20% pay raises.
Wow.
All of that came about because I said, yes, I'll sit here at the keyboard. I'll do my part. And God would do that. And that's how my sector career started. Since then, I've had all kinds of companies, Inc. 500, the Fortune 500s. I saved Northwest Airlines $80 million a year. I've saved U.S. Bank $52 million a year. So I've had an impact wherever I went. I got the chance to work at U.S. Bank in fraud and got to work on a project to help trap child traffickers by creating the footprint for transactions. So we could identify that these transactions were those of a child trafficker, freeze the accounts, and notify the FBI and put them to a stop. So that's probably one of the coolest projects I did.
That was the career that you had while you were under 50. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. That's very rewarding, I would imagine, and a great opportunity to put your skills to use in a different way to help in capturing these predators.
Right. So my job, and it was kind of funny with coworkers, I wasn't in there for the politics. I wasn't in there for the technology. I was in there to change something. So when you have that mindset, yeah, I'm a computer programmer, right? Or I'm an accountant, or I'm a janitor, whatever. But what does God have me here to change? And that changes the whole view of things, So like for Phone Live, and knowing the impact that we're having that we never planned on in translation and with the blind and with parolees, people with dementia, and the positive change that we bring into people's lives. That's exciting.
I like the fact that you were willing to work wherever you were needed. So many people today, especially the younger generation, adopt this, it's not my job. It's not part of my job description, so I'm not going to do it. And you are like, wherever you need me, Lord, send me there and I'll do my job to the best of my ability.
Yeah. I've had a couple situations where I'll be consulting at a firm and the manager would come to me and says, well, we just brought in this other consultant, or just hired an employee, and they want your desk. Would you mind moving over to this other desk? And I'm like, am I going to get a pay cut? I don't care.
Right.
You want, right? I've been in conference rooms, closets. One time I worked for a company and they had a problem getting me a computer. So I went to work for 2 weeks without a computer. And on paper, I drew out the analysis, the plan or whatever. And then they had me take my presentation to the vice president, and I showed him the presentation. And I'm driving back to this is a bank, they have multiple buildings, driving back to my office, and they called and they said, could you come to this other office tomorrow? I said, sure. And they ended up giving me 2 jobs. So I did my original job and this other person's job. They had to escort him out. He wasn't cooperating very well. And then a few weeks later, we get a call, and the bank wanted to renegotiate my consulting contract. Just a year before, they had cut all consultants by 10% on their pay, right? And now they're saying they want to renegotiate my contract, the bank is.
Wow.
So I called my representative. They called me back the next day and said, yeah, they want to renegotiate your contract. They want to give you a 20% pay raise.
That's quite the recognition for the effort that you put in. Do you do any mentoring to other people today?
I actually started in LinkedIn to start doing posts and hopefully start a YouTube channel in the future called Church Tech Life, and to provide coaching and insights to church tech folks that may be bivocational or full-time, some tips on how to maximize their salary, tips on finding the right job and culture, tips on ministry when working in technology. If you're just working in technology and ignore the ministry part, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities and stuff like that. And my first few posts on that topic have I'll call them gone viral. They've gone viral for me. So I typically get about 50 impressions per post. Those posts have surpassed 600.
Wow, that's good.
So I figure that's a niche where I belong and I can share. Also, because I was in consulting and I worked in some HR projects, I had a lot of insights into being able to help people find jobs. And I've saved marriages and helped people triple their income. And so one day, my twins are having a birthday party. I was running errands and I saw this family on the side of the road. Car's broken down, had a couple of young kids. I pulled over. It says, it looks like you guys need a ride. They said, sure. So they hopped in, come to find out that was the only car they had. They lived in a little trailer court. And I told the gentleman, I says, I will be by tomorrow morning at 6:30 to take you to work. He says, you don't even know where I work. That's why I'm coming by at 6:30. I picked him up. I worked in St. Paul. He worked in Minneapolis. So I had to go an extra 10 miles to take him to work. So take him to work. So what do you do? Well, he works with computers. I said, okay. I said, so do you mind if I ask you how much you make? And he told me what he made. I said, oh my. I said, here's the deal. Give me your resume and I'll blind it. I'll take out the ID information, right? And I'll share it in my network and we'll see if we can get you a better job. Within 3 weeks, he had 2 offers, tripling his income.
Wow.
Okay. Company that hired him called me and says, this guy's awesome. Can you go find more like him where you found him? I was like, well, I guess I could drive around and find people on the side of the road.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time. That's a great story.
So 5 years later, this gentleman invites us over to his home, right? But he's living in a little trailer. He's barely making it with 2 children. 5 years later, he invites us to his home, way across town. We drive over. He's in a $500,000 home sitting on 4 acres.
Wow.
And the play set that the kids had in the backyard had more square footage than his mobile home did.
Really? My goodness.
I didn't have $500,000 to give him, but over those years, my willing to minister, to help, to pick him up and, take him to work, turned into a $500,000 blessing for his family.
That is absolutely a God thing. Is there anything you would do differently if you could turn the clock back?
In my humanness, yes.
Okay.
But in God's wisdom, no. But if you got a minute, I've got a 50-year story to tell you.
Sure.
So in 1964, my parents were going through a hard time financially, and they were moving into a cheaper home to rent. And as they move in, the neighbor comes over and helps them. And the neighbor lady becomes good friends with my mom. And this is 1964, and they would play cards all the time and games. And her neighbor would invite her to church. And my mother would come up with excuses. So one day, the neighbor was playing a game with her and says, I need you to come to church with me this Sunday. Because if you can come to church with me for the next 10 Sundays, I can win a transistor radio. So my mom went to church, life-changing. She got baptized. 2 months later, my folks encountered bankruptcy, so they had to move in with my dad's folks 2 hours north. And from there, it was life-changing for our family. And I've been in the church, and my older brother's been a missionary to Cuba. I've worked with the Bible College. I've worked with the national headquarters. I've worked with states. Through Phone Life, we've impacted over 1,100 churches. So in 2014, it was 50 years we'd been in the church. And I wanted to go back to the roots and find out as much as I could. And we were going to surprise celebration for my mom. So in networking, I found out who the minister was. It was Reverend Donald Knight, and that he was still alive. Got his phone number. So I called up Reverend Knight. And I said, Reverend Knight, this is Hugh Plappert. You don't know me. But were you pastoring in Belleville, Illinois in 1964? He says, yeah. I said, do you remember baptizing a redheaded lady? He says, son, I don't know who you are, but you just changed my life. What do you mean? Well, in 1964, he was pastoring at a little church in Belleville. It was a family-owned and operated church, and he was butting heads. And anything he did, they were fighting against him. So in prayer one day, God told him, if you would have this contest and give away this radio, it would spark a revival. So he had the contest. The only person that came from that contest was my mom. The only person he baptized while he was there was my mom. But he was there for 9 months, and like he baptized, disappears. So he thought she'd just given up. But he was only pastoring there for 9 months. It was so bad, he quit and went in deep depression for about a year and a half. Finally picked himself back up, got involved in the ministry again, pastored in Mississippi for 5 years. But Stone Mountain, Georgia, started a brand new church, which today is a large church there that God blessed him to build up. And that church is a missions church. They sponsor every mission. As a result of that, he has ministered in 158 countries.
Wow.
And he said that every time he had success in the ministry, the devil reminded him about how embarrassing Church in Belleville was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a dark spot on his life for 50 years. Until he got the phone call from me.
Oh.
So he flies in. We told him, Mom, dress up. We're taking you out for dinner. We show up at church. He goes, I thought you were going out to dinner. Well, we are after church. And all these people from our past show up. We take her with Mom. We're going to celebrate 50 years. And we're so thankful for what God's done in your life and in our lives and grandkids' lives. And so I have this very special friend I want to introduce you to. And we went over to the side wall, opened the door, and escorted out Reverend Knight and introduced her to Reverend Knight. And he got up and preached a sermon titled Belleville. He says, every time God blessed me, the devil would remind me, oh, but Belleville, you did terrible in Belleville. Belleville was a waste. And it says, my turn tonight. Devil, let me tell you about what happened in Belleville. 50 years, God kept the curtain closed. And the funny thing is, Reverend Knight would be working with somebody I was working with during these 50 years. Some of the instructors we had at the Bible college would go in the mission field with them. Some of the ministers I worked with back in Illinois where I grew up were friends with them. But for 50 years, God says, we're going to keep this curtain closed. Because after 50 years, he can open it up and he can get the glory.
Oh, that is so cool.
And so that's one of the things about being over 50, right? Is we get to look back and say, wow, that's what God was doing.
That's right.
That makes sense.
By then you can connect the dots. You're absolutely correct.
But then how do you tell a young person to sit down, settle down? It's not that bad. Hang in there. Don't give up because God's doing something. And they're like, yeah, but they just fired me or embarrassed me or said something bad about me or took something away from me or cost me money but God's still in control.
That's right. Oh, what an impact that you're having on the lives of others by doing that and sharing those kind of stories. Do you have any advice for people over the age of 50 on what they can do to pursue their passions or identify things that can give their life meaning?
So in my morning devotions today, I was reading about Asa, who was, I think, fifth king in Judah. And he started out his ruling doing all kinds of things for God and honoring God and such. And Egypt came to attack him, and he sought God. God gave him wisdom. Even though the Egyptian army was bigger than his, he won, and God just blessed him and blessed him. But when you finish reading the story, as Asa got older, he got confident in his ways and stopped listening to the man of God. Right? King David, what a beautiful story of the giant and killing the bear and killing the lion and God anointing him and him becoming king. But when he got older, he slipped up. Right? And life wears us down. After a while, you figure, hey, it's my turn. It's my right. I deserve this or whatever. But I pray today, Lord, help me keep that youthful, trusting heart that I had when I originally started with you and not let the wears and tears of life. The scriptures talk about renewal of the mind, renewal of the spirit, etc. And one minister explained one time that when a 5-year-old gives his life to God, he lays everything on the altar and God honors that. Okay. But when he becomes a young teenager, now he's got sports in his life that he didn't lay on the altar when he was 5. He's got something new to lay on. Then he turns 16, he's got cars and girlfriends that he didn't lay on the altar. He's got something new to lay on the altar. And then when he goes to college and has a career, he's got something new to lay on the altar. Then he gets a wife and a family, he's got something new to lay on the altar. And so you're not a bad person, right? You're not going backwards, whatever, but just the wear and tear of life and the changes of life. We always need to go back to the altar.
That's a very good point because we keep adding stuff to it. How can people connect with you if they wanted to touch base?
On LinkedIn is where I'm most active. You can look up Hugh, H-U-G-H, Plappert, P-L-A-P-P-E-R-T.
Okay.
On LinkedIn. You can email me at hugh@phonelive.io. Would be another way to reach out. And, anything we can help with if you're a church techie and looking for advice. If you're a church and there's any way we can help you with your streaming and reaching those disadvantaged people that are not on the internet, need help with your receipt system, or you're tired of overpaying for Eventbrite and having to do a bunch of paperwork by hand to keep track of things. Those are current issues that we resolve, and tomorrow we'll resolve some other ones for you too.
I love it. What's next for Hugh going forward in 2025?
Oh, well, learning more about marketing and business and building up this business. So I was a board member at the Bible College for 14 years, and we got a new president in January, and so they got a new board. So we had a lot of changes this year. We had that change. I went full-time this year, and then we've had some challenges with some of our grandchildren and children that got kind of sober us up this year. And so we're kind of going down to the basics and starting over again to get on track. So I am doing some consulting in the Bible college area with some other Bible colleges.
Mhm.
I am also, I have just started last year coordinating the senior adult minister leaders of the national denominations. And so we meet 3 or 4 times a year and work on some concepts and programs. I attend their conferences and write articles for them.
Is that one denomination or multiple?
Multiple. So
Okay.
currently I work with the United Pentecostal Church International, Carlton Coon, Assemblies of God, Bob Cook, and the Presbyterian Chris, let's say Chris's last name right, Pulpit. Those are the 3 main ones. And we're trying to network with some others. We were able in our last meeting to network with a group called Girl Track, GIRLTREK. And that particular group is a group of Black ladies that walk. Okay. Started in Los Angeles with a couple of young ladies, and they were using a time of walking, exercising to encourage each other. Today, that group has grown to 1.2 million. And the health of the people that participate, over 60% of them has improved. They're taking less medicine, less depression, a lot of improvements. They started a meeting they call the prayer track, and they have a time of prayer, and they're growing into the senior adult area. So most of their members are younger ladies. They're growing into the senior adult area of Black ladies. So we work with them. And I try not to take on too many more projects.
Okay, good enough. Yeah, you're supposed to be retired, right? And taking it easy.
Yeah.
But you're utilizing your skill, talent, and ability to further the kingdom. I love that.
Right. So one thing, the transition of turning older is instead of being in charge, or being in a position or having authority, it's more in seeing others succeed.
Mhm.
Right. And what a great opportunity to multiply seeing others succeed.
That's right.
If I could save them 10 years of learning, then that's really cool.
Like I think Zig Ziglar used to say, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't have to get the credit for it all.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Helping
So,
others.
yeah, like my oldest son who's into technology, dropped out of high school when he was 17. At age 12, he was one of the first people to get an account with AWS in the cloud. Because he was so early, he has a lifetime account with them. Okay. At age 12, he developed a live streaming system before there was Facebook Live,
Mm-hmm.
sold it to a Brazilian sports team for $200
At age
without
12.
without his parents knowing it. He implemented that system at our church, and he had it hooked into Google Maps so we could see who's watching. And one day, it couldn't connect it to Google Maps. It was the International Space Station watching our church service.
Really? That's fun.
At age 17, he negotiated to buy out his employer. Okay. At age, I think, 19, he was working at Best Buy and turned their cloud networking system around. And after they hired him, they realized how young he was and how much experience he had. He got married. His wife didn't want to live up here. So he had to quit Best Buy. They came back 7 times trying to get him to come back to work for them. In the meantime, in 2016, 2017, 2019, his work was recognized as one of the best in the United States in the cloud by AWS. And about 6 years ago, he got an unsolicited phone call from an organization who saw his code in what's called GitHub, and they wanted to use this code and wanted to know if he would support them. That organization was the White House.
Wow.
Okay. So because of what I've poured into my son,
Mm-hmm.
right, he get all those advantages of getting ahead. So he's 20, 30 years ahead of where I was when I was his age.
That's neat. What a cool story. Well, thank you for sharing this perspective with me today, Hugh. I really appreciate it. Sounds like you're utilizing your skill, talent, and ability to help others and further the kingdom of God. And I think that's wonderful for somebody over 50. So thank you for sharing that with me today.
Thank you.
Hugh Plappert's stories were amazing to me about how he just seemed to be in the right place at the right time and how God continued to open doors for him to advance his career so he could serve others. From getting his college scholarship to getting a job at one of the largest airlines in the world, Hugh is a testimony to how God consistently used him to bless other people and expand God's kingdom. After sending out 100 resumes and getting 99 rejections, Hugh got an interview with Northwest Airlines. The job came with a benefit that allowed him to travel free anywhere around the world, and he used that to run errands for the Bible Institute. His position with the airlines connected him to the reservations manager, who was able to help missionaries and ministers get better deals on their travel too. During a company reorganization, Hugh technically lost his job title, but retained his job. He worked as a floating computer expert, going from building to building, helping wherever he could. That job allowed him to learn so many different tech skills that Hugh became incredibly valuable to the company, to the point he earned 20% raises. God also put him in the right place to help others. I love the story about how Hugh stopped to help a broke and stranded motorist, but wound up changing the man's life by getting him a high-paying job at a company in his network. Hugh also told a story about how he revived a minister's faith by showing what the pastor thought was a ministry failure for 50 years actually worked to help spread the gospel all over the world. Hugh cautioned people over 50 to keep listening to God and not to let down their spiritual guard so they can finish strong, unlike some big Bible characters. He lives out his own advice by using his skills and connections to coordinate the activities of senior adult ministry leaders in multiple large denominations. Today, through Phone Live, Hugh and his son created a virtual megachurch that brings services to 22,000 people every week over the phone. People can connect with Hugh on LinkedIn or through his son's Phone Live venture by emailing him at hugh@phonelive.io. That's all I have for this week's show. If you'd like help in identifying a purpose for your life or to get help planning your next steps, I'm offering a complimentary brainstorming session to members of the Forward from 50 Facebook community. For details, connect with me on Facebook or visit www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like this show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.